let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh.
Yeah. I made you watch the Maverick stuff today before we started this show.
Oh, why?
I haven't watched the team's game today against Charlotte. I know they lost. I watched the first game against Charlotte. Um, this team is a mess, man.
Yeah.
Like, and look, like I want to be very sensitive to the fact that like Luka Doncic was very open after the team's first loss against Charlotte, saying that, look, I have some things going on in my personal life right now. Yeah. It seems like he doesn't have quite that same verb or verve. I just said verb. Jesus Christ. The same verve that typically permeates his game. So there is, I believe that there is something with Luka that we don't know about, that we are not entitled to know about. And I wish Luka the best. I also don't think this is a Kyrie Irving thing. I just want to like start there and be very clear about this. I guess you can maybe make the case that like the package of assets they had to give up for Kyrie made it harder for them to do the things that they have to do. But I don't think this is a Kyrie is not really meshing with Luka and it's not going well in terms of that backcourt. I don't think it's any of that. When you watch Dallas, what do you see here?
Oh, I see a group of guys who don't have a real defensive identity or trust that they're going to get stops. And that's evident when you look at the roster. But more than that, Sam, what I see are some challenges from a belief standpoint that typically are caused by not knowing what your role in the rotation is going to be, by not knowing what you're going to be able to give on a night-to-night basis. And when coaching staffs are searching for answers, and we can go into a little bit later about why maybe Jason Kidd feels he needs to tinker with things and move guys in and out of the starting lineup or play guys one game and not play them the next. When you're searching for answers as a coach, you want to continue to have that one line that you always go to of you're a professional. It's your job to always be ready, no matter whether your number is called X, Y, or Z. But the rotations are changing so much on the fly. The minutes from a night-to-night basis for many of their role players are up and down, in and out of the lineup, DNPs to 25 minutes the next night. That preparation, particularly mental preparation, is really a difficult thing to do. And I think what we're seeing is the effort and the intensity that's needed on a nightly basis waning because none of the players really knew what to expect, how dialed into the scouting report they need to be, which guys are going to end up going and guarding on a night-to-night basis. And as much as Jason Kidd wants to turn it around and say, we need more energy, we need more belief, we need more preparation and guys taking this on and having ownership over it, it's a very difficult thing for players to do when they don't know what to expect in terms of their role. And to me, there are a lot of issues going on in Dallas, but I do have a little bit of sympathy towards the players who are thrown in so many different ways, just trying to see what sticks to the wall. It's going to be hard for anything to succeed in that type of environment.
Yeah, so the Kyrie Luka combination so far in Dallas has played 260 minutes together. They're a +5 when they're on the court together, yeah. Right? Kyrie without Luka on the court, they're a +6.5, right? Like they've been okay. It's when everything else is haywire is the problem. And I do think it starts on the defensive end. Over the last 15 games, they are 23rd in adjusted defensive, or not adjusted defensive efficiency, just straight defensive efficiency. They are 23rd over the course of the last 15 games. I don't know what their identity is. And the problem is that I don't think they have the personnel to actually create a defensive identity. Okay, we could try and go big. Like Jason Kidd sometimes talks about trying to go big with their lineups, right? The problem is that when you go big, you're talking about going big with like, Maxi Kleber and Christian Wood, or Christian Wood and Dwight Powell together, or Maxi and Dwight Powell, something like that. And none of those guys are good rim protectors. Like you're going big without actual rim protection, which is then just like minimizing your ability to play small and like be able to switch and like be able to do a lot of different things, right? And then on the other side of it, sometimes they'll try and go like smaller ball. The problem is then they're too small, I think. Like you try and play Jaden Hardy and Kyrie together, that's too small. Like you try and play Josh Green and Luka essentially at the 3 and the 4. That frankly, like with the way Luka defends, it's too small. Like I just really think that they don't have any answers defensively in any way. And like, look, this all comes back to roster construction and just the overarching idea of what made Dallas successful last season. Like, Dallas was really good, made the Western Conference Finals last season by being an awesome defensive team around Luka Doncic, having guys like Dorian Finney-Smith that were terrific, having real like solid rim protection, like having like Maxi Kleba, who in the playoff run, for instance, could play the 5 and they could be super versatile and aggressive and they could space guys out while still having Maxi to be able to do stuff. And I don't think Maxi is quite 100% back yet from his injury. Maybe he is, and like maybe he's just like a little bit slow right now. It feels like Maxi isn't quite at 100% of what Maxi is capable of bringing, which is a significant problem for them. But instead of doubling down on the idea of great defenders around Luka, what they did was they go out and acquire Christian Wood, who's not a defender, like can't defend at all, terrible on that end. Then they trade Dorian Finney-Smith, who's like the heart and soul of their defense, for Kyrie. And like, I'm not opposed to that as like a forward-thinking move, potentially, if they're able to re-sign Kyrie and Kyrie is capable of keeping everything together in his case and keeping everything focused on the basketball court. But it just feels like they went entirely the opposite way of what worked for them last season. And I do not understand why Nico Harrison and company did that. It genuinely makes zero sense to me. And I honestly wonder if this is like a pure disaster hire as the like president of basketball operations.
Well, Sam, I think we knew when they made the trade for Kyrie Irving and they pulled the trigger on getting rid of a guy like Dorian Finney-Smith that their defense was going to take a hit, and that in order to get the personnel back in the building that they needed to have a good defense, they'd need July to come around. They just need a summer of free agency and hope that there are going to be enough of those role players around who are going to want to come play with 2 star offensive guys, and they can rebuild that identity. We all knew it was going to take a step back as soon as they pulled the trigger on that deal. The disappointing part is that it has taken a mental toll on the roster in terms of their belief that there aren't other guys who are willing and trying to step up. There aren't defensive schemes that are consistent to try to say, you know what, we're just going to go all in on trying to let this be how we construct the team and a roster and beat everybody. I keeps going back to the consistency around who they have right now. That's frustrating to watch, and why Dallas has been on such a tough slide. And look, they got blitzed by Charlotte on Friday and came out and changed so many different things with their starting lineup and their roster, trying to fix some of those issues. And they got drilled in the first quarter and were down huge to the Hornets again today. So this is as much about the belief that's going on in that locker room. I'm not going to touch the Luka Doncic situation. Don't know anything. Don't want to comment on that without knowing. But the role players and the guys here look very much like a group who is frustrated that they don't know what to expect.
And look, this part of the schedule should not have been this big of a bear, let's say. Mm-hmm. Since February 28th, they've played the Pacers. That's a loss. They played the 76ers. That was a win. They played the Suns, loss, beat the Jazz, then lost to the Pelicans and lost twice in a row to Memphis. Then it took overtime for them to beat the Spurs. They beat the Lakers without LeBron. And if I remember correctly, that was like kind of a weird, that was like a weird Lakers lineup kind of that like obviously didn't have LeBron, but no, they had AD. They had AD and Russell. So no, I'm wrong about that. They just beat the Lakers by 1. And then they lose on the road to Memphis. They lose to Golden State by 2. And then they lose to Charlotte. And by the way, that game against Golden State was a home game against Golden State, a team in the Warriors that has drastically struggled on the road this year. Like, has been an absolute mess on the road this year in such a substantial way that it's hard to feel a lot of confidence with this team moving forward. They're going to play the Pacers on Monday night in what is, I believe, the third game in 4 nights kind of situation. And then they get on the road to play the 76ers in the Heat. Then they're on the road to play the Hawks. Then they're at home to play Sacramento. Like, this is a problem for Dallas, because here's the thing. They are coming into today, they were tied with Oklahoma City for the 10th spot in the playoffs. They lost today to Charlotte. Oklahoma City plays Portland, and this is like a skeleton crew Portland that has already said they're going to have like Shaedon Sharpe guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which is like a choice for sure. That's going to put them a game behind Oklahoma City in all likelihood. And then on top of it, Oklahoma City has the tiebreaker with them. So they're basically going to be 2 games back of that play-in spot. And look, like, it's a little bit more complicated that when you start getting into like multi-team stuff, the tiebreaker doesn't matter as much anymore. And everything is so clumped in the West that multi-team situations like are absolutely a real thing. And look, like, maybe Oklahoma City does not beat Portland, right? Like, they're currently losing to Portland. Like, they're down 4. Who knows, right? It's just really hard. It's just really, really hard to see where this is going for Dallas right now. And that's where I think, like, that's why I wonder, like, what is their plan? I've seen nothing in the past year from them in that front office that says to me, we have a great idea of what we want to be and what our identity around Luka is. It's just felt like they've gone out and acquired players as opposed to like having a plan of attack in place first and then like going for it. They're just like, oh, we can trade the 27th pick for Christian Wood. Okay, that seems like good value. Let's do that. It's not great value. Like, Christian Wood is, like, I said at the time that I thought Maxi Kleber was going to play ahead of Christian Wood and got some real pushback, let's say. And I was right. Like, I think Maxi plays over Christian Wood, right? Then they go out and they acquire Kyrie because they think that, you know, when's the next time a superstar is going to come available? I don't know. Like, it kind of changed the entire dynamic of your team. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you want to change the dynamic of your team, but maybe not. Like, maybe you need to come in with a plan, right? To me, when I watch Dallas right now, it feels like, from a team building perspective, I do not know what their plan is. With Memphis, they want to get a bunch of really competitive dudes, have a great defense, have John Morant be the guy that runs the show on offense, and they want to build that great defense around him. With Oklahoma City, size, positional skill, length, high-level processing ability. With the Lakers now, they've gone away from being too small. They want to play bigger around LeBron and AD, have shooting, have some defensive ability, be able to be like 6'5" or taller, with defenders who can shoot and two-way players around LeBron and Anthony Davis. With Denver, right? Like, built the perfect roster around Nikola Jokic because they all move super well without the ball. They all run in transition. You can go through every team essentially, right? And come up with what their plan is, basically. If they're having success right now in some regard, right? I don't know what Dallas's plan is from a team building perspective right now. And if I was a Dallas fan, that would very much concern me if I was wanting this team to be successful.
Yeah, I want to see what July brings and what adjustments they can make now that they have Kyrie and Luka in the building, or ostensibly have Kyrie in the building. But I think the panic meter, I'm not an overreact to regular season games kind of guy, but the panic meter's starting to heat up a little bit there in Dallas, because it's about the process, how this has all been kind of handled. And it seems like, and this is just not how I like to operate from either a coach or an organizational standpoint, there's been a lot of deflection of blame upon the players for not executing things, when I think the roster is not well thought out and the coaching has not been alleviating them of some of the challenges that the roster has created.
Yeah, I mean, look, everyone wants to blame Jason Kidd, and look, like I don't think Jason Kidd's answers in press conferences typically alleviate any pressure on himself, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't even know if he's like standoffish. He just is very nondescript and like will like shrug it off. It feels like kind of is like a non-important part of his job. Um, I don't know how much I blame Jason Kidd for this right now. Like, yeah, like you're right. Like he's not letting any of these guys get into rhythm. He's not playing guys together for long enough stretches of time to like really get comfortable together. I'm with all that. Like I get that you're right. I just kind of think that like he's trying to find answers to a solution that doesn't exist on this roster, and that's the problem.
I'm going to throw something out there real quickly, just as a break glass in case of emergency. Like, if I were looking for an injection of some sort of positivity in the lineup, this is where I'd go. It would be Theo Pinson. Like, he has been just Mr. Mavericks and role player for such a long period of time. He played 6 minutes against the Lakers in that win. He hasn't played over 10 minutes since before the All-Star break. He's not the most skilled guy in the world, but he has been the best culture guy that they have, sans Dorian Finney-Smith. And I wonder if just having another athletic, like, I'm going to go out there and try to inspire my teammates type of moment is kind of what Jason Kidd and the Mavericks need right now.
I kind of love that idea. Like, look, if the thing is, if Theo Pinson is saving your season, you probably have some bigger problems.
Right.
But I agree with you. Like, I think it's great. I think they should play Theo Pinson and try and be aggressive, I guess. It just, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm staggered when I watch this team because I don't know how you can so substantially fuck up a roster with Luka Doncic. That's kind of what worries. Like, and that's why I said at the beginning here, like, I think there's a non-zero chance this Nico Harrison like choice is disaster for Dallas. Like, this is a guy that was a Nike executive who you talk to people around the league, like they will tell you like he's a smart basketball mind, like people love him, etc. But like not a guy that really has a lot of experience doing this maybe. And it's not the easiest job in the world. Team building is not the easiest job in the world. There are a lot of different factors that go into it. And yeah, I have some pretty real concerns about the road that Dallas is headed on right now. Yeah, in a substantial way, in a very substantial way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not been pretty to watch.